Access with Danny Zalesko and Tim Richards.
All right, so before we go to before we go to Mo Bay, I'm going to ask you guys, both Nigel and Mick. So Mick first, give me like the best part about working with Pink Floyd.
The fact that in when I was 20 years old, a friend of mine took me to a Pink Floyd concert at Birmingham Town Hall. They did Atom Heart Mother, which was an amazing, I still think one of the greatest albums they ever did. Not the greatest recording, but it really was an amazing set of music. And I remember this before I was in the business. And I remember sitting there thinking, God, if ever I worked in the music business, that's what I want to do, production. Look at that. The lights were just awesome. The sound. Everything about them, I still get goosebumps thinking about that one show. And then in March of 81, I'm under the stage. I get an electric shock for one of the transformers that were completely left wide open. There was no covering on them. And as I did, I came up and banged my head on the stage, and it was the epiphany. Oh, my God, I'm working for Pink Floyd.
The dream you had at 20.
The dream I had was now a reality. Even though my head was a little sore, it was like, wow, that was it. That was my moment in life. That was the greatest production I'd ever worked on. Done some amazing shit, but really, that was it. You can't go any better than that. And having a drink with David Gilmour in the bar.
Well, I was telling Danny that I've seen a lot of shows in my time as well. Hundreds and hundreds of shows, maybe thousands. And the best show I've ever seen was the last time Danny brought Roger Waters in. To Glendale, that I just blown away, speechless. So I feel you viscerally.
Well, that wall tour was a replica of what we did all these years ago in 1981. So 1981.
You'll all be happy to know that while we're doing this, Roger called on my cell phone. And I had to go, piss off. I'll call you when we're done.
Oh my God, Daddy, that's perfect.
Please send him our best. So Nigel, Van Halen, AC/DC, Billy Squier, just like couple of highlights from those times, memories that stick out there. Like, I can't believe I saw that or did that.
I think probably when it was happening, you don't realize what you're involved with, the size.
Yep.
Because you're in such a cocoon.
Yeah, but back then, as you were starting that, Van Halen then wasn't the iconic Van Halen that they are now. They were becoming that. They were setting the steps and the stage for becoming like this huge band in history. But in 1984, they were a relatively new band. They were a big arena band and everything, But it had really just started a couple of years before that.
Right. But at the end of the tour, and you sat back outside of the bubble and you kind of looked in, you realized what a monster that band was. You had everything you could possibly want in the 80s for a rock band. You had a good-looking singer, the long flowing hair, who was just a front man for every girl's dream. Let's face it, and every guy too, probably. And then you had Eddie, who was just a monster on the guitar. You had Michael, who's probably one of the most down-to-earth pop stars you've ever met in your life. The nicest guy. And actually, talking about Michael, he had an endorsement with I can't remember a hard liquor company, and I can't
remember. Daniels. He had the Jack Daniels. Yeah.
So he had a guitar made like a Jack Daniels bottle, and I think we were in Montreal, and it got delivered, and he was just, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in all my life. So his guitar tech strung it, tuned it, showtime. Lights go down, Michael comes on, Dave comes on, the whole thing gets going. And at the end of the first song, I hear Michael at the top of his voice go, "You motherfucker." Somebody very close to the front had flipped a quarter and it had hit his guitar and took a chunk out of the guitar.
Oh,
He was absolutely beyond livid because he thought this was the greatest thing that ever happened to him. So at the end of the show, he was just ranting and raving.
Well, that bass is probably not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it may be at some point. And if you get out to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and you see it and you see the chunk, Nigel just told you the story of how it happened. Now you know.
Exactly.
You know, one of the greatest things I'd like to do, and I'd like to do this with Mickey too, is when the time comes and we're probably too old to come home at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning from doing shows.
I'll see you tomorrow, Nigel.
Is actually go round to high schools or colleges, because nobody can go into a high school and explain to students what the music business is about.
Yeah.
It needs somebody to have grown up in it and to go back on a weekly basis and tell these stories and how you can get in the business. And there's so many different facets of this business. And I think
we can bill ourselves as the Three Frickin' Stooges.
we could do Mr. Norfolk and Mr. Good. That's Mr. Norfolk and I'm Mr. Good. We can go out and call ourselves Norfolk and Good. But I think it's something the kids would really digest. I think they'd really enjoy it.
No, what you guys have been witness to history. You have made history. You've created history.
We without we really have. I mean, we were on the front line all the way through. And while it was happening, you don't realize while it was happening. Now you look back on it and go, you know what? We were top of the tree while that was all happening.
Like they used to say in Babe, not bad, pig. Well done.
Thanks, Poodle Lips.
Just to add to that, I was on a conference call on one of these sites that have grown up now, and they were asking the question: are we ever going to see it on the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd? Yes. And there was a lot of very young people on there all going, yes, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And I got sad news for them because all of that happened in an era of something that grew like a plant out of a pot. And eventually that plant is going to die. There's going to be something to replace it. But we used to, if you lived in England, you listened to the BBC. I mean, there's a whole history of not having enough entertainment as we grew up. And, radio was so bad in England, we had pirate ships on the coast called Radio Carolina and Radio London, and we tuned into them. And they played the great Luxembourg. They played the greatest music. It's not that. Right now, if I could live to be 500 years old, I couldn't listen to every piece of music that lives on this planet.
No, you couldn't.
It's hard to even turn on music now and pick something that you want to hear. It usually goes back to something we grew up with rather than something that's new out there.
All Access with Danny Zalesko and